Hello and welcome to the 4th edition of the CarWale Track Day. It's been 1.5 years since the global pandemic hit us hard, and this year in 2021 we finally managed to hit the track again. Now our theme for this year, it's Everyday Heroes. Now we're calling them Everyday Heroes because these cars are used every day in difficult city conditions, for commutes and as everyday family cars. Now, apart from being the commuter and the family car, these cars also have a sporty side to them which bring joy to the owners who really like to drive them. And we decided, why not celebrate these everyday heroes by bringing them here on the racetrack. So who are these everyday heroes? Let's take a look. So we start with the Maruti Suzuki Brezza. Now in its latest avatar, it's petrol only with a 1.5 litre naturally aspirated engine. The Brezza came out on top during our 2018 track day thanks to its playful character, and we're hoping it'll be the same with the petrol engine. Alright, now we have my colleague Bilal who's going to be talking about the Maruti Suzuki Brezza. Alright Bilal, so what was the Maruti Suzuki Brezza like when it comes to the steering wheel?
So the Brezza is very light on steering, but it's very easy to control.
Right.
The light steering helps it chuck into the corner,
Right.
and you can just mid corner you can maintain and or correct it properly.
Right.
And that lightness really helps, but it lacks the feel.
Right, so that lightness helps you chucking it around quickly,
Right.
but it lacks that feel
Yeah,
of a heavy steering.
Exactly, it's progressive,
Right.
but you don't know what's going to happen next, or
Right.
you have to corner correct it. Right.
So maybe a little heavy steering feel would have helped make it a better track car.
Right, but again, it's a city SUV, so it's good on roads.
Right.
But again, when you take it on the track,
Right.
the light steering could have been better.
Alright. So steering feel we could have done with a slightly heavier feel.
Right.
Let's talk about body control. What is body control in the Brezza like?
It's based on it's basically a crossover. So
Right.
the higher center of gravity, when you pull it into a corner, there's loads of body roll.
Right.
And if you don't have a proper
Entry. Right.
if you don't have a proper entry, it's bound to like shift weight.
Right.
And you have to pull it into the right racing line.
Right.
And that's it. You have to work it more.
And does it get affected when you're shifting directions quickly?
Surprisingly, it doesn't. Like it flows. The weight flows properly, but
Right.
it's the body roll. If you miss the corner, if you take the corner
so it's
improperly,
quite prominent when you
it's
miss your
prominent
racing
when you
line.
miss a racing line. But if you're like on the racing line and you're shifting the corners,
Right.
it does that beautifully.
Right, perfect. Alright, now let's talk about the grip. It's a big SUV, just like the Nexon was. How good is it?
If you are onto the throttle into the corner, it will understeer. Like you want to go somewhere, it will go wider. But apart from that, if you have proper speed, carrying a proper speed in a proper gear, it will get onto the other side very nicely.
Right, so it was one of our better performing compact SUVs in our previous test.
Exactly.
So I guess the handling part there is sorted.
It's sorted.
Right. Alright, so we're sorted about grip. Let's talk about straight line performance. There's no more diesel. It's a 1.5 litre naturally aspirated engine. What does it feel like barreling down the straight?
It's again one of the old school naturally aspirated four-banger, which is very rare these days in the
Right.
turbo era.
Right.
It screams down the main straight or the back straight, and
Right.
it's very it's a rev happy engine.
Right.
You can hold on the gear for a longer period of time,
Right.
and it screams, but it delivers.
Right.
It picks up pace properly. There's no turbo lag.
Right.
It's very linear performance.
And what about the gearbox? Does it match the smooth engine?
Yeah, the sleek shifting gearbox, it's really nice to work around when you're
Right.
into the corner, before the corner.
Right.
You can just engine brake as well with the gearbox.
Right.
It's really nice combination.
Great. So you didn't miss a turbo engine in the Brezza.
In the Brezza, not exactly, no.
Perfect. All right, straight line performance done. Now let's talk about one of the most important parameters on the track again, braking. What is the braking on the Brezza like?
The brakes on the Brezza were quite impressive as well. It had a good initial bite, and when you went hard onto them, it didn't lose the composure. So that helped also when you're coming down, like screaming down the straight, and then you have to enter a corner.
Right.
It was really, it had a good composure.
And,
it didn't fade after the entire day of use.
Okay,
as well.
perfect. So there was no fade noticeable fade either.
No noticeable fade.
Perfect. All right. So that was all about the Brezza from Bilal. Let's move on to the next car. Up next is the Hyundai i20 Turbo DCT. This car has all the credentials of being a modern hot hatch with its turbo petrol engine and twin clutch gearbox. Let's see how it does. All right, now we have a hot hatcher, which was again driven by Bilal. Bilal, let's go through those parameters again. What was the steering feel like on the i20 Turbo?
The steering on the i20 was very friendly initially, and it's very light and easy to use, very friendly and chuckable as well. So when you are approaching a corner, you just have to work through it. It's very progressive. You don't have to like put too much effort into it like you do in the Polo.
Right.
So it's very usable, everyday usable.
And what about the feel? Do you have enough feedback from it, or is it a little numb? What is it?
It could do with a little bit more feedback because it's very electronic and it's not well connected.
Right.
You do get a better feel in the Polo, but comparatively here it's very light and easy, but you don't get what the tires are doing.
Right. Perfect. Perfect. Bilal, now steering done. Let's talk about body control. This is a compact hatchback, very compact footprint. What does it feel like hustling through the corners?
Like being a compact hatchback, it's very low slung, it's very chuckable and usable, especially after switching from a Vitara Brezza. It's very low,
right.
And you can carry a lot more speed because of the confidence you get, and it's not rolling as much. There's
right.
like
so it goes quite flat.
Very flat, and the body rolls are very composed, and it doesn't roll too much.
Right.
So you can carry a lot of speed and very fun to drive on the corners as well.
So this is the i20 Turbo. We don't know what, I think the i20N may be a tad more fun compared to this, but that's for another day. All right, so body control done. Now let's talk about grip. Okay, right. So again, compact hatchback, it's got a wide footprint. What do you think of the grip levels on the car?
The grip levels on the i20 were really nice. It's fun as well as you have a good confidence when you're taking a corner or like playing around the i20 on a chicane. It shifts weight properly.
Right.
There's no it doesn't
lose composure.
It doesn't lose composure. You have a lot of confidence.
Let's talk about one of the highlights of this car, the straight line performance. 1 litre turbo, 118 bhp, 172 Newton meters of torque. It's got a DCT. So does that all come together to make it, a fun to drive car?
Absolutely, absolutely. So once you exit the corner and you have a nice flat straight, you just gas it and the turbo spool comes up and it just boosts. The car just boosts into a straight line speed.
Right.
And the DCT, it works through the gears very nicely. It's very seamless. There's no jerks as well. So it's very fun going through the corners and then exiting into the fast lane.
Right. So you have enough performance from it exiting the corner. So
enough boost on the
so
tap.
So all that comes together to give it some good lap times and make it a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Now that done, let's talk about the braking. Again, no discs at the rear. It's a disc drum setup, but it's lighter than all the other compact SUVs, and like I said, it's a hot hatch. What is the braking like, since it's got all that performance?
Well, it could have done with a slightly better initial bite because you have to dig in a lot for it to brake harder, and that's really necessary because it's a powerful hatchback. So you are carrying a lot of speed before a corner, so you have to work the brakes a bit more than you require to.
But then I guess once you get used to it, it does stop.
Absolutely.
Well.
So once you work it around and you have you get used to it, you can have a confidence in the brakes.
What about brake fade? Did you notice considerable brake fade, or was that not a problem at all?
It wasn't a problem as such.
Right. Perfect. So all in all, it comes together quite well as a hot hatch for the track.
Absolutely. Being a turbo, it is.
Great. Perfect. All right, so that was about the i20 Turbo. Let's move on to the next car. Giving competition to the i20 Turbo is the OG modern hot hatch, the Volkswagen Polo GT TSI. The DSG might have been replaced with a torque converter, but the car makes more power than before. This should be interesting. Alright Ninad, so you had your go in the Polo. Tell me what the steering feel was like.
Its steering is direct. You have that heft that you would need, especially in these corners. Probably in the city, people think that the steering is heavy, but out here, that's what comes to its benefit.
Right. So even if it's an electric power steering, it still has a little bit of that hydraulic power steering, even though it's EPS. So
Correct.
it gives you that extra feel, which makes it a little more fun in the corners, right?
Definitely.
Right, right. Alright, so steering feel done. What do you think about the body control?
It's lovely. In fact, you have that confidence at every corner, right out there on the track. Even if you push the car, you don't feel that you might just understeer or something. Obviously, if you are going too hot, you are going to understeer, but it's very friendly in that manner. You won't overcook any corner as such, and probably whenever you're on the throttle, yeah, you just keep going.
And does it roll too much, or is it quite flat?
Not really. In fact, this is one of the hatchback that goes flat out in the corners, and it's really fun out there.
Alright, now tell me what the grip levels of the Polo was like.
Pretty phenomenal for what it is. It's running on our usual city tires. Basically, we've not, since we've got it to a track, we've not upgraded or anything. It's running on those stock tires, and for that bit, yeah, obviously maybe an upgrade could have done even better, but these have their dual purpose out there in the city and then here as well.
I guess we should have tried the racing slicks that the Polo race cars have.
Probably that's the reason why Volkswagen has got that
Right.
track specific, but this is
Right.
pretty good for what it is.
Alright, so grip levels done. Now, what about the straight line performance? 1 liter TSI engine, torque converter, no more DSG. Do you think it's just as good as before, or is it better now?
I wouldn't say it's better, but for what DSG has left behind, we were under the impression that this might not be as good. But people who have driven it will obviously agree to what I say, and people who haven't driven, they will find it as good as. So, as good as the DSG. Basically, it's not, the gear shifts are not as quick as the DSG, but then it won't leave you with that, yeah, because they are fast enough. They don't leave you, there's no delay that you would expect. And then for the 1 liter turbo, they've done a very good job.
Alright, so now let's talk about the braking.
So for this car, it has a compact footprint. Yes, I think it could have done really better with rear disc brakes, but for the course, yeah, it's
good now. Alright, now thank you so much for the inputs on the Polo GT. I guess we can move to the other car now. Up next is another turbo petrol, but doing duty in a compact SUV, the Tata Nexon Petrol manual. It makes more power than before, and it has a manual gearbox to harness it. Let's see what this big boy can do on the track. Right now we have Ninad again talking about the Tata Nexon. Ninad, tell me, what was the steering feel like on this compact SUV?
Probably we'll start off a negative note because I really didn't like the steering. It doesn't feel, it should have had the heft that it needed, especially out on a track. But yeah,
So
that's what
it could have done with a lot more feel,
Yes.
to make it more involving.
Yes.
Right. All right. So steering is not a highlight of the Tata Nexon. Let's talk about body control. It's an SUV. What does it feel like in the corners?
As you said, it is a SUV, so I had that feel that obviously there will be a lot of body roll. Yes, there is body roll, but it doesn't make you feel that, oh, you are going all around the place. It holds on to its line. Obviously, if you are not going really fast, it will not understeer. But yes, it's pretty good that way.
So pretty surprising when it comes to body control. All right. Let's talk about the grip. What is the grip like in the Tata Nexon?
Phenomenal, I would say. Obviously, there are tires squealing, but the way Tata has brought in with the chassis balance, grip I would say it's fantastic.
So basically, it's all of those things coming together. It's not just the tires, it's the chassis balance, it's the suspension components. So all of those come together and give it some good mechanical grip, right? All right, great. So it's a good handling compact SUV then. Now let's talk about the straight line performance from the turbo petrol engine.
Definitely the turbo has helped in a lot. Out there, you might feel that, okay, off the line it could have done better, but when you're gunning for it, yes, it definitely keeps going. You make progress faster. And then the gearbox, yes, I had a little feel. It could have been a little more slicker. It could have been the rubbery shifts. They take off that feel of it.
Right, right. So Nina, tell me, let's get to the final parameter. What is the braking in the Tata Nexon? Like a big SUV, hauling it down just before the corner. What is it like?
Definitely, it is a heavy vehicle. So obviously, braking, you're right coming off the straight line, and then you want to turn in a right or a left, you have to brake. Initially you think you might be you feel nervous, but then the vehicle definitely drops the anchor quick. You have that feel and it does grip.
Right, so it's got enough bites. Do you think it could have been a little better, or does it have enough bite?
Maybe rear disc brakes could have helped it, but as of now it does feel really good.
Great. All right, so that was all about the Tata Nexon. Now let's move on to our next car. The only sedan of the group, and a diesel one at that, is the new Honda City. It might not be the i20, but the i20 makes a healthy 200 Newton meters of torque, and we have a manual gearbox to harness all that power. So now we have Venkat here, who's driving around in the Honda City diesel manual. Venkat, tell me, what is the Honda City like when it comes to steering feel?
So the steering in this Honda City diesel is very light and very easy to use, but it lacks a certain amount of extra feel that we would like. However, it has that ability of point and shoot, which means that if you correctly load up the car, get the angle that you want and enter the corner, the car will hold and it will just go in the direction you want. It also gives you a minor amount of extra so that you can make a few corrections in the corner, but you can't overdo it. You have to enter the corner prepared and exit the corner prepared.
Right. So it is a good steering. It does lack a little feel, but if you keep everything under check, it's still a fun car to drive.
Yes.
The steering is a fun thing, right?
It's a fun thing to use. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So steering done. Now let's talk about the body control. This is a sedan, the only sedan in the group. What does it feel like hustling it through the corners at MMRT?
So as a sedan, it always has that advantage of its 2-box, 3-box design, which means that you get a nice weight balance. However, this is a sedan aimed at like comfort driving, to be comfortable on the road, right? Which means it does have a certain amount of body roll.
Right.
But if you prepare up and you enter the turn, you can get the car to go with you. You can like sort of hustle it into the turn. It's very forgiving.
Right.
Not too hard, not too harsh, but you can hustle it.
Right, perfect. All right. So let's talk about the grip now. What is the Honda City feel like on the track? What is the grip levels like?
So the grip levels are actually pretty good. Now the thing is, we would have liked maybe wider rubbers so that you could carry more speed into the corners, and it will also give you confidence to maybe go faster. But otherwise, it works really well. Again, like I said, it's a very forgiving car. It means that it gives you a certain degree of extra to if you come
so
too
even if you're
hard,
pushing a little too much, it takes it in its stride, and you can still carry on.
And the other thing here is that it has a stability program, and you have an option to turn off the stability program. But the thing is, it doesn't turn off completely. If you cook it through too hard through a corner, the program will cut power. It will ensure that it will cut power and bring you back on track.
Right, perfect. So it makes sure that you are in check at all times.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, now let's talk about straight line performance, because this is the diesel. It's the only diesel in the group, and it's got a manual transmission. So what is it like exploiting a diesel here out on the racetrack?
So there's you need to get it above the 2000 RPM mark
Right.
to spool up the turbo
Right.
and see some action there. Now the thing is, because there's so much of grunt available so quickly, the characteristic of this Honda diesel engine,
Right.
okay, you get good acceleration, right? And the thing is, the gearing is stretched out, it's a bit long,
Right.
so you get to rev more in each gear, which means that you don't need to keep shifting
Right.
as much as
so you can
would expect.
carry those corners in a lower
In a
gear.
lower gear,
Right.
you get the confidence to carry it in a lower gear, and it'll keep going.
Right, because it also has that revs.
Yes.
Right, perfect, perfect. So, we spoke about the straight line performance. Now, what is the braking like in the Honda City, especially because this is a car more for commuting? What does it feel like on the racetrack? How good are the brakes?
So I'll give it to you in two bits. One is that it gets discs in front and drums at the rear, which is somewhat segment standard. Some of the players have started offering more, some lesser. The brakes are very progressive, which means that you can go hard into a corner and you will get stopping power. And if you push hard lap after lap, it will take quite a bit to start tiring the brakes out, which means that you get similar levels of confidence over multiple laps.
That's
Now,
nice.
because this is a sedan, it's softly set up, it has a tendency to dive into the turn.
Right.
And if you yank hard, like for example, if you come out of the first turn here and you yank hard, you can feel the body roll
I
as
see.
you go in,
Right.
because it's already dived,
Right, right.
So it's a car where you should complete your braking and carry momentum into the turn rather than going all the way to the end and then turning,
Right.
because you then have to fight body roll also.
Right, right. So you need to plan your braking, but other than that, there's no signs of fade, and it's got enough stopping power.
We would have liked discs at the rear.
Right.
That would have made a big difference, and it would have also allowed you to carry a lot more speed into the corner, because you'd be able to brake later and you'll have that thing that, okay, I'll be able to stop no matter how far I push it.
Right, right.
Fantastic braking from this diesel Honda City.
All right. So, Honda City, a car for commuting, but it does equally well on the racetrack, according to Venkat. Now that we have described the Daal, let's take a look at the Tadka. Adding flavor to this lineup is a really spicy car. This is the BMW M340i. It's a sedan that you can commute in, take it for a weekend getaway, and then get it to the racetrack too. With 382 horses from its 3-liter straight-six engine and the power put down by all four wheels, it's the closest you can get to racing on Sunday and selling on Monday. And now we have Sagar here, who's been adding the Tadka to our Daal here with this fantastic BMW M340i. Sagar, tell me, what is this car like, starting with the steering feel?
Okay, now you got the accolades completely right, because it is a very special car, and right from the steering feel, as you said, it's, even though it's a proper like a family car, it drives like a sports car, and you can feel that with the way the steering feels, the way it weighs up, especially at a racetrack like the MMRT. Now, even though it's got electronic power steering, and I've heard a lot of people complain about how it robs off that magical feel from the 3 Series range, but if you ask me, it's completely fine. Like, it weighs up correctly, and it's got that nice heft to it.
Right.
Like that's something that you need when you're going through the corners over here, and so that like it's bang on in that sense.
And it just changes character when you change those modes. That includes the steering as well as the throttle response and the other things, right?
Yeah, completely. It changes the way this car drives, and it affects the way the steering weighs up as well.
Right.
So you can make it light, but I would personally prefer it with the heft that you get in the Sport Plus mode.
Perfect, perfect. All right, steering done, a sports sedan. What is the body control like on a tight track like MMRT?
Okay, the MMRT actually suits this car a lot, because it's got a mix of long winding corners and short sharp switchbacks, so where you can really feel the electronic systems on this car working. And in most sports cars and luxury cars, when you switch off all the electronic nannies, they're still on and you can feel it.
Right.
But in this car, it's different. Like when you switch them off, it's actually off. And even with everything switched off, the car doesn't feel out of shape at all, even when you're going at speed, when you're carrying a lot of speed through the corners. So it's very neutral, and the body control is completely predictable. Like,
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, so body control done. Now let's talk about the grip levels. Like we mentioned, it's all-wheel drive.
Correct.
And you've got fantastic body control.
Yeah.
You've got great steering. So how does it all come together when it comes to the grip?
So even though it's an all-wheel drive car, it's got BMW's xDrive system, but in essence it's a proper BMW, because the all-wheel drive system, it doesn't cut power, it doesn't kill all the fun, because it's slightly rear biased. So like unlike other all-wheel drive systems in like rival brands, where when you're on the limit you'll get understeer at max and neutral chassis balance through the corners, but in this, because it's rear biased, you can actually slide the tail out, get your tail out a bit and have some fun through the corners.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So even though it's all-wheel drive, it still works like a rear-wheel drive, and then it also has the advantage of all-wheel.
Yeah, it almost echoes a rear drive. Plus you have the assurance of all-wheel drive system, right?
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. All right, 340i, 6-cylinder engine,
Correct.
inline,
Yeah.
380 bhp.
Yeah.
What is it like coming out of those corners?
Okay, so the 3-liter inline 6 is like a proper powerhouse. And even though BMW claims it makes 380 horsepower, now you and I know that
Right.
they usually underclaim their horsepower figures. And while driving the car all day at MMRT, I could feel that it's definitely got more than 380 horsepower. I feel like it's more like a 400 bhp car, the way it
Right.
pulls in a straight line.
Right.
Like the performance is explosive, like the engine, like throughout the rev range, it
Right.
just pulls and pulls
Right.
all the way till the red line.
Right. So that straight line performance is fantastic.
Yeah.
What about the gear shift? And what I mean, I love the sound. What does it sound like when you're just barreling through the straights?
So it actually sounds better on the outside, because in all modern BMWs you have sound that has been synthesized
Right.
through the speakers, right?
Right, right.
So it doesn't sound all that great inside,
Right.
but when you're outside and like
Yeah, you get that rumble,
oh
even
yeah,
though it's not an M
absolutely.
car, a
Yeah.
proper turbo
and,
M car.
and for a turbocharged engine, it
Yeah.
sounds really, really nice. Like it sounds like a high revving engine. Usually with turbocharged engines, they don't rev so high, and
Right.
you get that muted sound, right?
Right.
But with this car, it's different.
Perfect. So they've got that spot on as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
All right, so that done. Let's talk about one of the most important parameters when you get a car to the track.
Yeah.
Braking. What is the braking like? We know it's got phenomenal performance
Correct.
on the straights,
Yeah.
but does it stop as well?
So, okay, braking performance has been a bit of a mixed bag for me. Like the brakes on the brakes on this car, they feel just about adequate. Like, don't get me wrong, like
Right.
there is pedal, like there is good pedal feel and all, but I would have liked some more bite,
Right.
especially when you're at a high speed
Right.
racetrack like the MMRT, and
Right.
when you have almost 400 bhp.
Right. So
I would have liked some
you
more.
just get to those speeds really quickly, and you would have just appreciated a little more bite, so it stops a little more confidently.
Yeah, yeah, and also I did experience some fade
Right.
in one of the sessions.
Right.
So yeah, like the brakes could need some upgrading.
Perfect.
If you plan to drive this car on the track a lot, that's something I would suggest. Like,
Right. Perfect. All right, so that was all the information you wanted about the BMW M340i from Sagar. Let's move on to the next car. Now that we're done with our Daal and the Tadka, let's get to the main course, or rather, the meat of the matter. This is the Volkswagen Polo race car, and this baby is so hardcore that you can only drive it through Volkswagen's Arrive and Drive program. Now this isn't some half-baked go-fast Polo. This is the real deal. 210 bhp from its 1.8-litre turbo petrol engine, mated to a 6-speed sequential gearbox, the Race Polo boasts neck-spraining acceleration and stomach-turning G-forces. And now we have Sagar here yet again, and I think he's one of the lucky ones here because he's already driven the BMW M340i, and he's also driven this fantastic beast of a machine, the Volkswagen Race Polo. Sagar, tell me, what is this beast like? And again, let's start with the steering.
yeah, Abhishek. Well, I've been luckier still, because for our previous track days, I had driven the Amio Cup car and the Vento Cup car, and now this Pocket Rocket. And if you think about it, in many ways it's even better because it's got a shorter wheelbase, and it's a smaller car, it's a lighter car. It's more fun and even more tricky to drive.
Right.
And that's what I exactly felt all day today while I was driving this car. About like the biggest takeaway for me is how tricky it is to drive on the limit, even like right till the steering feel. Like it might be very small, but it's huge on feel. Like,
right.
You get so much feel, like you can feel all of the road through it, and it's incredibly quick. Like
right.
you wouldn't experience it in a regular Polo or any of these other performance cars that we have, even the M340i.
Perfect.
It beats it for steering feel. Like
Perfect,
yeah.
perfect. All right. So you told me it steers like an absolute demon.
Does, it does.
Now surprise me when we talk about body control.
Okay, as you know, this car is essentially a race car, and it feels like it at every single corner of this track. I mean, the body control is phenomenal, and no matter how hard you try, you cannot really unsettle it unless you're going really, really fast, like
right.
over your limits, right. and the grip limits on offer. But as long as you know what you're doing with it, you will not have a moment at all, and you'll be doing breakneck speeds all throughout this track.
Fantastic. So tremendous body control. Now tell me, what are the grip levels like? And I can already see some racing slicks there.
You get full MRF slick tires, you get fully adjustable coilovers, and that massive wing at the back. So there's a lot of mechanical grip, and you have to be a really big idiot to overcome the mechanical grip that this car has to offer and get involved in a nasty incident.
Well, I'm glad we didn't get involved in any of those.
Oh, yeah.
And we just had a gala time driving it.
Oh, yeah.
But so it's got phenomenal grip. Now tell me about performance. 1.8 liter, 210 bhp,
Yeah,
sequential gearbox.
Yeah.
What is it like?
So this car is not really a straight line hero, right? It's all about cornering speeds and the way it feels through the corners. But even though it's more of a handling, like it's more of a track car, the way it pulls in a straight line, it's phenomenal because it's such a light car, and 210 horsepower is a lot,
Right.
like when you think
Right.
about it.
Right.
And especially when paired with that super quick sequential gearbox, you know you'll be doing some serious speeds without even realizing.
That's awesome. So it's race car all the way.
Yeah.
And does it stop like a race car too?
It does. It's got huge brakes and disc brakes all around, and plus the slick tires. So you know you have a lot of grip when you'll be braking. But then again, I was surprised that I was locking up a few times around this track. So it's really tricky to modulate the brake pedal when you're going hard. But again, once you get used to it, you can shed speeds like that. It's
Super.
yeah,
Fantastic,
it's really-
fantastic. All right, so that was all about the race polo, and we can clearly see that Sagar had a ball driving the race car on its limits. We've finally come to the end of the 2021 CarWale Track Day, and we had an absolute ball pushing our everyday heroes on the absolute limit. These cars that go about their jobs inconspicuously in the city really stood out on the track thanks to their fun to drive character. And then of course you had the BMW and the Volkswagen Polo race car, which added further entertainment. We hope you enjoyed watching these cars on the track as much as we enjoyed driving them. And we can't wait to come back here for the next CarWale Track Day real soon.